Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, the exile of the Rohingya. Rohingya Muslims are an ethnic minority from Myanmar. They've suffered severe persecution since 1992. The situation intensified after a deadly crackdown by the Burmese army in August 2017, which led to some 740,000 Rohingya fleeing to neighbouring Bangladesh. They were then put in a refugee camp in Cox's Bazar in the south of the country. In December 2020, the Bangladesh government decided to shift some of the refugees to an isolated island in the Bay of Bengal. But this relocation plan is raising many questions. Well, joining us is our reporter, Alban Alvarez, who filmed this report along with Mathilde Cusin. Alban, you and your team had a very rare access to this island where many of the Rohingya are now rehabilitated or stuck, depending on how you look upon this. Why is it also problematic?
Yeah, well, it took us several months and to convince the authorities of Bangladesh to grant us the access to Bazar, because when the project came out to relocate some Rohingya refugees to a remote island, the government of Bangladesh faced a huge backlash from NGOs and even from the UN Refugee Agency. Now, almost 30,000 Rohingya have left Cox's Bazar camps to settle to Bazar.
Alban Alvarez, our reporter. Let's take a look at his report.
Off the coast of Bangladesh, this naval boat is taking 3,000 Rohingyas to a new location. Among them are 19-year-old Ashatera Begum and her husband Usman. Like most of the passengers on board, Ashatera fled Myanmar in 2017 after years of repression.
One day, when I was coming back from school, a policeman raped me and threatened me and said not to talk about it with anyone. But I told my father, and the only thing he said was that there's nothing he could do, as the policeman is with the pro-extremist Buddhist monks and that they can imprison us. Later, that cop and a group of monks gang-raped me.
The couple volunteered to leave everything behind once again as they were tired of their poor living conditions in their last refugee camp. Shortly, they will join their relatives living on Bazar Island. It's a new refugee camp for Rohingyas recently built in the middle of the Bay of Bengal, which is fully funded by Bangladesh. 23,000 of them have already been shifted there. Ashatera and Usman don't know when they will be able to return to Myanmar. Bazar might be their last home. 5 years after the largest influx of Rohingyas entered Bangladesh, the country hasn't been able to negotiate their repatriation. So it found a temporary solution in Bazar. But NGOs have since been raising serious concerns about this island. We are the first Western news channel to travel there since the arrival of the refugees. Lakhmina Jasmine Soma, a Bangladeshi journalist and Rohingya expert, arranged a pass for us under the condition that we will film in the presence of authorities.
There are actually 120 cluster villages. These houses are empty now. So when the new batch of Rohingyas will come, maybe they will get this house.
Here, each family of 4 is given a 15 square meter room. The toilet is shared with other families.
When the first batch were taken, I was with that batch, and I came here with them. They had like instability. They didn't know that what's going to happen in their life. But after a few days, after a few months, when I came here again, I saw that day by day they are becoming habituated with this island.
31-year-old Munir was part of the first convoy of relocated people. It was his decision, he tells us.
This is my family. She is my wife.
Munir lives here with his wife Fatima and their 3 children who were born in the refugee camp. Bangladesh has not granted the Rohingyas freedom of movement or the right to education or work. This family has accepted that the only way to deal with their stateless status is just to wait patiently.
We don't know how long we are staying here. But like the rest of the 20,000 other Rohingyas, we have learned to live here. We will follow all the instructions issued by the government. We are refugees here, and Bangladesh has the power to relocate us wherever it wishes to.
Munir tells us that he prefers to live here than live in the camps in the south of Bangladesh.
There was a group of gangsters. When we were not able to pay them, they thrashed us. We were fed up with it, so we moved here.
Situated near the border with Myanmar, Cox's Bazar is now home to the largest refugee camp in the world. Here, over 1 million refugees are cramped in an area of 32 square kilometers. Authorities are now trying to unclog the settlement where living conditions have become dangerous. Growing clashes among drug gangs have made refugees more vulnerable.
Killed in clashes between 2 groups of Rohingyas.
Residents here have also been victims of severe floods and deadly fires in the past few years. In 2021 alone, 151 fires were reported. Just 3 days before we visited the camp, a massive blaze left 3,000 families homeless. 2 children were charred to death, including the eldest son of Shamshida and Mohammed. A psychologist is assisting the family deal with their loss.
Can you go to the cemetery tonight? If you show her the tomb of your son, it will help her to recover from the grief, and she may be able to eat again. It took her back to the harrowing experience she faced, like the burning down of villages in Myanmar. This new trauma has reopened her old wounds. That's why she's gone insane.
The day the fire rigged through the camp, the family had gone to get some food. In a panic, their son Ayas ran into the house and got trapped in the raging flames.
He was 4 years old. This is the only photo we could save. We lost everything, all our money and our belongings, but my biggest loss isn't money, but my son. I will never see him again. I want the government to repatriate us. If they don't, we will illegally return, but we will not stay in this hell.
A hell that young Rohingyas are trying to escape using their words as weapons. Nur Shahida and Hairu belong to a group of young poets who share their politically charged poetry on social media in the Rohingya and Burmese languages, as well as in English they learnt at the camp.
Whenever I feel unwell, then I take a blank paper and I take a pen. Then I start writing poems by thinking, what did I suffer? What do I need to do in future? What will be my children's future?
His poems talk of the persecution the Rohingyas have faced.
I struggle to express. The situation made me silent, yearning to assert the world, remaining alive inside.
The misery of refugee camps is also evident.
Huddling like prisoners in cell, killing anxiety and fear. In my kind from homeland, while dwelling in this turbulent shelter. In this overcrowded refugee camp, for a while, no proper pathway, no route. For fresh air, no space to breathe.
I have no expectation because I have no future. My future is totally melted. It's like a candle, it melted. When I migrated from Myanmar to Bangladesh.
In Bhasan Char, despite the hardships, Munir is trying to rebuild his life step by step. With his last savings, he bought this tricycle that he uses as a delivery cart. Thanks to this cart, that he can earn up to €5 a day.
At the moment, there is no work. That's why a lot of refugees don't want to come here.
Munir and all the other 23,000 refugees can move freely here on the island. But to travel out of the island, they need a special permit. Their livelihood mostly depends on food distributions by NGOs and the government, while some have been given small plots of land for farming. Public infrastructure hardly exists here. There are a few NGO-run clinics, and this is the only government hospital here. So a question arises. Could Bhasan Char turn into a prison island completely isolating the Rohingyas? The officer in charge denies it.
Of course it's better here, because shelters in Cox's Bazar are in poor condition. They have to constantly repair their huts, and they're dependent on NGOs' help for everything. The roads are in bad shape, and the sanitary conditions are unhygienic. Honestly, the Bangladeshi government is trying its best here.
Why do they need a special permit to go to the mainland?
We know that when people flee a country, they become refugees. They don't have the right to free movement in the country of their arrival. I hope that maybe we will start this repartition very soon. But I humbly request all the UN agencies, UNHCR and other countries to help Bangladesh repatriate them.
Meanwhile, to protect the island from sea erosion and frequent cyclones arising in the Bay of Bengal, the government built dikes around the island and cyclone shelters, which apparently cost them €350 million. In the hope to change their fate and statelessness, refugees bet on the education of their children.
L, M, N, O.
For Munir, it is the key to a better future.
D, E, F.
Our lives are already ruined. Now we have worked towards improving our children's lives. No one will feed us all our lives, so we have to secure the future of our children. If they are educated, they will have options to work in different fields, and they will be able to take care of themselves and their families.
After the 2021 coup in Myanmar, negotiations for repatriating the Rohingyas have been halted. At the same time, Bangladesh plans to bring in 100,000 more refugees to Bhasan Char.
That report by Mathilde Cusin, Alban Alvarez and Lakmina Jasmine Soma. Alban, still with us here. Alban, do the Rohingya refugees have any hope to one day return to Myanmar, to Rakhine State?
Well, according to the refugees we met, being relocated to Bazar is a way to escape the harsh living conditions in Cox's Bazar while waiting to return to Myanmar. It may be surprising to us, but despite the military junta being in power, despite the genocide and the atrocities the Rohingya face, the Rohingya only wants one thing: to go back to their country. But for them, this return can only be done with some guarantee. Like, for example, regaining their citizenship, they have been deprived, and of course, with the guarantee of not facing any more atrocities there.
And Alban, the authorities, the Bengali authorities, they're quite clear, aren't they, that the Bazar situation, it's a temporary solution.
Yes, because basically, in fact, Bazar was supposed to be a military base for Bangladesh army, but the government decided to turn it into a refugee camp. And over the last months, authorities have been insisting on the fact that living conditions on the island are better than in Cox's Bazar camps on the mainland. But as you will see in this interview of Bangladeshi doctor based in Bazar, the access to healthcare on the island remains limited.
Type of challenges, especially the orthopedics case and the acute emergency cases, it's very difficult. If the premature baby is born, then it's difficult to survive that babies. Boats are not possible sometimes. If the environment is not okay, then we can hire the boat and can send the patients. So this is the main challenge.
Dhaka feels extremely lonely in dealing with this humanitarian crisis. There are, of course, dozens of NGOs and the President of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, but that's not enough. Dhaka is now calling its neighbors, such as India and China, and even the United Nations, to put pressure on Myanmar to come back to the table for negotiation and to start the process of repatriation of Rohingya refugees.
Easier said than done, isn't it? Alban, thank you very much indeed. You can, of course, see our report by Alban Alvarez, Mathilde Cusin and Lakmina Jasmine Soma on our website, france24.com. This is Reporters here on France 24. Stay with us.